Is pornography a virus or a gift to this world? Some people, mostly religious or moral-centered people, would say that it's bad. They would claim that it's inherently evil and that we should avoid it at all costs due to the personal implications as well as the cascading impact on families and society at large. And yet, many psychologists claim that it's perfectly healthy, that we are little more than animals who have sexual needs, and to repress those urges would be a very bad way of living. So why not indulge in an endless stream of virtual sexual pleasure? Which perspective is true? Or is there a middle ground? First off, is this even an important question? Does it impact you specifically? Well, think about the amount of time that people spend watching porn. Think about the fact that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that impacts the lives of millions of workers. Think about the fact that it's directly impacting the worldview who watch it, which is most people. So it's impacting how they perceive the world, meaning our politicians, the people who are creating our arts and our media, the people who are in charge of education. Directly or indirectly, porn influences all of us in some way. So it's really important that we take a closer look into whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. Try not to see this topic from a predetermined worldview. Try to objectively analyze the truth from porn in a few different ways from a bunch of different angles. In this video series, I'm going to be focusing on 3 specific ways in which porn impacts us all. First, as consumers, as the individuals who are watching and consuming porn. Second, the production, how it's made, the people involved. And third, the environment, how porn is impacting our world. In this first video of the series, we're going to be focusing primarily on the consumer and how we specifically are being impacted through our direct involvement by watching porn. And just so you know, this video could probably be the length of a feature film. I'm sure I could go off on many different tangents, but I want to keep this focused. I want to really talk on point, and because of that, I'm going to have to leave out a lot of information. So keep on the quest of the pursuit of information, and you will come to a conclusion that really feels good to you. If you would like me to elaborate on anything further, please leave that in the comments below. So let's get into it, starting with the consumer. You. So as a consumer, do you think that porn is addictive? That's a very interesting question because for most people, the obvious answer is yes. I think that if you were to be a decently self-aware person, the concept of addiction is when you can't stop doing something, you're addicted. Here's where things get interesting because addiction for a long time only included substances and not behaviors. In 1980, gambling was finally recognized as an addiction. Duh. And only in 2018 was video game addiction finally recognized. It's called gaming disorder, or GD. What about porn? Can porn be as addictive as video games? As compulsive? Of course. But is it classified as an addiction? Nope, not yet. The DSM-5, which is a body of work created by the American Psychiatric Association, includes all of these 8 behaviors as addictions: gambling disorder, internet gaming disorder, internet addiction, food addiction, hypersexuality, shopping addiction, exercise addiction, and tanning addiction. But not porn. Tanning? A tanning addiction? Keep in mind the porn industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And keep in mind that most politicians, even most psychiatrists, those who are making the distinctions in these types of scenarios are probably watching porn. I'll let you figure that one out. There are even a number of psychologists who actively and openly petition against classifying porn as an addiction. And although there have been numerous studies showing the opposite to be true, that porn is in fact addictive, well, I suppose the facts don't matter to them. If you want to learn more about the mountain of evidence supporting the fact that pornography is an addiction, I'll leave a link in the description below. So let's get back to addiction. A much simpler definition from the mouth of the esteemed world-renowned Dr. Gabor Mate, who just happens to be a specialist in trauma and addiction, defines addiction as any behavior that gives a person temporary relief and pleasure, but also has negative consequences and to which the individual return time and again. So how does that sound? Do you think porn applies to this definition? Are there any benefits to watching porn? Well, just like all addictive behaviors, there must be some form of benefit for the consumer to return to. Otherwise, it's all bad and no upside. And just like many forms of compulsion, the consumer isn't addicted to the thing itself, but rather what the thing gives them. It's not sniffing or shooting or smoking drugs that addicts enjoy, but it's the feeling the drugs give them. So yes, of course, we are feeding our senses with something exciting. In all such activities, there are spikes in our inner personal neurochemical pharmacy. You see, many activities are designed to give our brains and subsequently our bodies a wonderful feeling. Porn is mentally like a drug to our brains, which causes spikes for happy feeling chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. With dopamine especially, porn acts as a super stimulant, meaning we receive momentary tidal waves of dopamine that is a rush which almost is impossible to replicate. Stimulants like drugs and porn are all the reward without the effort. It's like buying something on credit. You're getting the thing without having paid for it. The price you pay in the long run with hard drugs are things like permanent brain damage, decreased physical health, mental health issues, etc. With porn, the consequences are a little more subtle, and we'll get into that in the next section. In the old days, there were more risks associated with the pursuit for porn shops. But now, with the era of high-speed internet, the convenience of not leaving your home and having a sexual experience completely tailored to your needs is unmatched. High speed is a key term here because due to certain receptors in our brains, we find it more and more difficult to distinguish between what we see on a screen and what we experience in real life. We forget the fact that we're watching a piece of plastic and glass because we're so wrapped up in the vision that it's projecting. And now it's free and there are smart algorithms. It's like an all-you-can-eat sex buffet. So the convenience is huge. Are there consequences to watching porn? Yes, of course there are. In fact, there are so many consequences that I can't possibly list them all in this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on some unique points that will really help you to form a perspective on whether pornography is serving you or enslaving you in the long run. If you can imagine going to the buffet every time you're hungry and eating whatever you want, it's going to have a detrimental impact on your health. Same is true of having a sexual feast for the senses at your beck and call through your phone. It creates this devolving of the human soul because we need to make effort in order to grow. And that a la carte situation of pornography creates an environment of extreme selfishness in the individual. It also promotes reductionism, which is reducing the complex human being into body parts. Just like cars get stripped for parts, so too do humans through pornography. When you're watching porn, you're looking at the people in your screen as objects of your desire, and you don't care about their emotions, you don't care about their physical well-being, you don't care about their future or their past. All you see them as is a product that is there for you to feel good. This disconnects us from our own emotions and from the emotions of others. It makes us numb to the feelings of others. And when you're numb to the feelings of others, you can rationalize and justify doing pretty much anything you want to them. It's how you dehumanize them. You reduce them to a point of pleasure rather than a complex being. Pornography is also the act of meeting natural needs in a very unnatural way. Sexuality is meant to connect us to love, the act of loving another person, creating love, or making love. It's meant to connect us to real people. It's meant to connect us to our ideals, to our goals, to our hopes and our dreams, to being functional members of a family and a society. But in the context of porn, sexuality is used as a mode of escapism rather than connection. All in all, this helps us to form a transactional perspective about sexuality, which is essentially stripping sex down to an emotionless, soulless exchange. Human beings are at our very best when we're empathetic towards one another, when we care for one another, when we act in service of one another. And we are at our very worst when we disregard the value of a human being in order to serve our own selfish needs. That's porn in a nutshell. And if you care about cybersecurity, just know that porn websites are the worst place for your security. They openly steal your data. And if you've ever paid for something on a porn website, you can almost guarantee that your credit card information is out there in the dark web. Like I said, there's so many more consequences that I can get into, but I think you get the gist. You might be thinking to yourself, yes, but is it okay in small doses? So let's look into that question from a few different perspectives. If you look at porn as though it were some form of junk food for your mind, heart, and soul, then you can compare it to the health crisis in America. Here in America, we are a land of abundance, yet millions of people are overeating and are malnourished. They're overweight, but they are not getting the nutrients that they need in order to be thriving, healthy individuals. Why would that be? It's because they're eating empty calorie, junk food. In this situation, people are eating based on what their mouths are asking for instead of giving their bodies what they really need. Flavor over health, form over function. Porn is very similar in that it offers you the illusion of sexuality, the form, without any of the much needed benefits that come with real healthy sexuality, the function. Sexuality is meant to leave us feeling more connected with other people. It's meant to act as a bonding agent between a couple. It's meant to substantiate the esoteric, making feelings real life, such as love, reverence, commitment, etc. It's meant to be like a litmus test for how a couple is doing. With it comes the possibility of creating life and passing down your lineage. Just like junk food, porn leaves you starved for something real, since you didn't receive what you actually were craving in the first place, which is connection, meaning, validation, etc. That's why the more porn becomes ubiquitous in our society, the lonelier people are. Because we're eating at this sexual buffet, except there's nothing but empty calories going in through our senses. We're starving for something real, something healthy. What makes porn worse than junk food is the fact that it creates polarity. Other people need to suffer in order for you to experience enjoyment. But just to wrap things up on a bright note, I want to talk about the alternatives. You see, many people are left feeling like they need to watch porn, because what are their options? They assume that everyone watches porn because movies and most forms of media and probably all of your friends are repeating the same misinformation. But it's simply not true. There are plenty of other options when you build a life of self-awareness. For about 100 years, we've been told that humans are nothing more than animals and we should be able to thusly behave like animals sexually. And humanity has slowly been buying into that lie. But we're so much more than that. Our art, our capacity to rally around a cause and protect people all the way around the world is evidence of that. We are at our very best when we care for one another. So why wouldn't that apply to our sexual lives? Are there alternatives? Yes, of course. High Noon has been working with men and women from around the world. There are socio-emotional elements as well as environmental and spiritual. These people are finding that porn is and always was just a distraction from their pain, from their boredom, from their powerlessness. It was a vacation from their lives. So we have been helping them to build a life that they don't want to escape from. High Noon is an international community of people who want to stop settling for fake alternatives to love and connection and are willing to put in the work of building self-awareness so that they can have a life that they really deeply want. If you want to know more, check out the website in the description below. Stay tuned for the next video. We'll be addressing the porn industry in that video. It's going to be off the charts. See you then.